Hi everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar on expanding the reach of scientific articles. My name is Alastair Cook and I'm the Operations Director at Research Publishing International. We provide specialist communication services to academics and those who work in R&D. With me here is Nico.
Hi, I'm Nico Chatziandreou. I'm a publication manager at Cargill, which is a 130-year-old scientific publisher focusing on human health with a portfolio of over 100 scientific journals.
Thank you, Nico. So let's get into it. So when we talk about expanding the reach of scientific articles, we ask ourselves first, why we'd do so. It's important to reach audiences beyond academia with the goal of bridging the gap between academia and the public. It's important that the public is able to understand what's going on in science and what researchers are studying. And by conducting research and dissemination, academics can share their findings in a way that's more accessible and understanding to the public. And accessibility is something to consider, especially beyond open access, which promises more accessibility. How many people can still understand what's happening in their scientific journal? I think the language used there can be quite prohibitive sometimes. Another important aspect is a lot of research is funded through governments, and it's important to give back to society and let people know that their tax money is funding that research and why it's important. It can also increase your profile as a researcher, taking your concepts beyond that that's published in academia itself, with people sharing it, and can raise your profile and in turn career prospects. You can also inspire other people to become researchers. You can connect with people who are students, pique their interest in scientific topics that you're studying, and leave a legacy behind. It's important that dissemination can help you build relationships with stakeholders, community groups, industry partners, and policymakers. By engaging these people, you can help your own research and understand more where they're coming from and develop that into your own ideas and philosophies. Promoting the value of research is very important, especially in the post-COVID era where we saw a lot of mis and disinformation. By demonstrating the practical applications of your research and its potential to solve real-world problems, you as academics can help build support for continued investment in research. And something else that we're seeing a lot more recently are mandates from funding agencies to engage in outreach and dissemination. So the void between academia and the public is quite large, and a lot of funding agencies, for example, the DFG, have stipulations now that academics have to engage in what they've called non-traditional outreach, but that is taking your research and putting it into other different contexts and formats for other people to understand. So how can you do that? Firstly, what's important is to isolate who you're trying to communicate to. There's no point communicating just for the sake of it. It's really important that you understand the knowledge base of those people that you're trying to communicate with and tailor the communication to those specific audiences. If you're communicating material that's too complex to an audience that can't understand it, you're going to lose them. And equally, if it's too simple and you're communicating to other people who are your peers, you risk patronizing them. And that's something to consider when you're communicating. Another aspect is, how does the audience receive their information? Format is an important consideration. I'll go into some statistics later regarding formats and how you can use them to identify key demographics. So these different considerations can have a direct impact on how successful you are in your ability to communicate your work. So we'll go into some formats now and how they can be used. So animation is an incredibly versatile format of communication. You can do a lot of different, there's a lot of different ways that you can communicate your work, and the visual element adds a lot to that. So it's an incredible way to simplify complex concepts and make them more accessible to a wider audience. You can break down technical or abstract ideas into more digestible parts and make them easier to understand. It's a lot more engaging and entertaining. Animation is really visually engaging and an entertaining medium. It can capture the attention of viewers and can hold their interest and keep them engaged with content being presented in front of them. It also allows them to see, especially in health research, the more granular aspects. If you think of method of action animations and how drugs enter the body and work, it allows them to see, an audience to see parts of the scientific research that's being conducted and that normally would be hard to envisage. It's a very versatile medium that can present a wide range of information, from data visualizations, which can normally be quite boring, to storytelling. It can be adapted to suit different learning styles and preferences, which is very valuable for outreach because you can target different demographics with different types of animation. It's also very memorable. I know myself, there are lots of different animations I remember from being a child. So viewers are more likely to remember information presented in an animated format, and it can be an effective tool for knowledge retention. And it widens the reach quite dramatically. You consider 52% of internet users worldwide access YouTube in the last month. If you create an animation and upload it to YouTube, it has the potential to reach countless amounts of people. It can also be used across a wide variety of different platforms, social media, websites, whether they be personal, institutional. You can use them at conferences and other different video hosting sites. I know I've mentioned YouTube before, but titles in YouTube are good for search engine optimization. And it means that people Googling certain aspects or keywords relating to your research can then find that animation based upon those. The next format is podcasts. I'll just wait while the slide. There we go. So podcasts present a very low barrier of entry into scientific communication. Essentially, what you can do is record a podcast yourself. There are different platforms that you can upload it to that aggregate all the podcast platforms. For example, there's Buzzsprout and Podbean, and you can create Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast accounts, and they'll aggregate them and essentially upload your podcast to all of them. So as an outreach and dissemination tool, it's very effective and low cost of entry in order to engage in this format of outreach and dissemination. So they're a highly accessible medium. They can be accessed from anywhere with an internet connection, and that means you can reach a broader audience, including those who may not have access to academic journals. It allows you to engage in storytelling. So podcasts provide a platform for academics to share their research in a more engaging and accessible way. By using different storytelling techniques, you can make your work more relatable and easier to understand for a wider audience. They also provide networking opportunities, so you can connect with other researchers, other experts, cross-disciplinary experts as well. Invite them as guests onto your podcast. You can collaborate and build relationships that way. One of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is called the Huberman Lab podcast, run by Professor Andrew Huberman at Stanford University. Personally, I absolutely love it. I listen to it religiously. He gets different guests on, and the success of the podcast has grown exponentially since its launch. I think he was over 4 million subscribers or something like that on YouTube. So it certainly is a very valuable tool for outreach and dissemination. It allows you to tell a lot of the story of your work and display your expertise for different audiences. And also, over 53% of Americans aged between 12 to 54 listened to a podcast last month. So, and this is only ever increasing as a format. Podcasts listened to and interacted with by a lot of different people. If you consider people having commutes that are driving, they're able to listen to a podcast and also drive their car at the same time. It's not like something like animation where your sole focus is necessarily has to be on that visual element. And back to demographics, when you're considering the format that you want to engage with when communicating, podcasts are listened to mostly. So 43% of monthly podcast listeners are aged between 35 to 54 years old. So if that's a key demographic you want to target with your work, then you're able to do so by podcast. And finally, websites. So as an aside to enhancing, expanding the reach of your scientific articles, you can provide a home for them that goes outside your traditional Google Scholar or ResearchGate profiles or the profile that you have on your institution landing page. A lot of people move institutions, and with them, these aspects are sometimes left as legacy content online. Having your own professional website and being able to control your online presence is an important part of being able to be found as an academic or researcher. So it's an essential tool to establish and maintain a professional online presence. It allows you to show your research, your publications, teaching experience, any other professional achievements. It also would allow you to host any types of animations or podcasts or anything like that you engage in one central place. So the control over it is an important aspect of it because you can edit it yourself. There are numerous different plugins and templates you can use, so you don't have to know how to code. There's different websites that you can engage with. WordPress, for example, templates that you can fill out and have as a way of doing it as a relatively low point of cost in order to develop. It provides an easy access to information, so you can share information about your research and your teaching with broader audiences. It also has the ability to increase potential collaborators and students and allow those people to find information about your work. It also increases the visibility that you have. So you can have, for example, drabigailsmith.com, and that obviously can be search engine optimized for your name. That particular URL costs a penny to buy for 3 years of hosting. So, like I said, you can have all of the information about yourself in one direct place, an online CV as it could be, and then you can share that quite easily. All it takes is a URL, and you've got all of that information there. It also would appear when someone Googles Dr. Abigail Smith, that would essentially be the first result that people would see. So finally, it can increase your job opportunities. So it can be a valuable tool for seeking job opportunities. People can browse and you can showcase your skills, achievements, research interest to potential employers and make it make yourself a very attractive candidate. So the last part, if anyone has any questions for me on my part of the presentation, then please feel free, or waiting to the end, Nico.
Sure. We can take questions now as well. It makes sense if you prefer.
Just don't all ask at once. Is okay. Right, we'll have to proceed with your part.
Sure, I don't see any questions written, so perhaps we might be able to continue.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alastair. So for those who connected a bit later, I'm Nico. I work at Cargill. Thank you very much for joining. This is the second part of the presentation, and I'll present about the means that we can use to expand the reach of your scientific article. So the idea is simple, that you have your scientific article, and what do we call a scientific article? I'm sure all of you know. It's essentially a report of an update or a study that is scientifically, technically, and ethically sound, as validated through peer review. And it is in scientific report format and using a certain standard of language. Now, what I will present is a set of different means that are based on the concept of creating additional content as an accessory either on your article or around your article. So someone could say, we would like to hear about social media and so on, but this is not about, if I can say, metadata dissemination of an article. This is that could be social media, it could be promotion at a conference, an announcement, and so on. This is about the creation of additional content. And on the left-hand side, you can see two items that are elements that are optional to submitting authors if they want to add something to their scientific article. And on the right-hand side, you can see activities and events around the article. And this is a great way to spotlight scientific content. So let's look at them one by one. So graphical abstracts are essentially a visual representation of the abstract of the article. They enable a faster understanding of the content, and they help convey the message of the article to experts even in different fields. This is an option. So authors, if they want, they can submit the article. So this means that the authors are responsible for the quality, resolution, and accuracy of the images. Typically, they need to be a single panel, and they are peer-reviewed. The graphical abstracts, once all of the material of the submission has gone through peer-reviewed, they're accepted, then they are published and placed right next to the abstract, as indicated in these examples. And they are a great way to a great tool to disseminate the article on social media. So here I've put a couple of examples. So you can see that they can have they can be in different styles. So the one at the top is a tripartite table. The one at the bottom is again a table that uses icons. So whatever it can be to convey in using a picture, an image, the main concept of the article. And being an item that is an option when someone submits, if a journal is open to the submission of a graphical abstract, instructions can be found in the author guidelines as normal, as someone would find for the abstract and the overall structure and so on. Now, similar to the graphical abstract, we have the plain language summary. And I say similar because this is, again, a similar concept in the sense that we're talking about a variant of the classical abstract. In this case, we're talking about something that is a piece of text. And the key feature is that it is a text with a simple language. So the idea is to avoid using special technical terms so as to make the text more accessible to a wider audience. Again, like with the graphical abstract, the plain language summary is prepared by the author. It is an option. It is submitted alongside the rest of the material that is submitted with the main manuscript. And it is, again, subject to peer review to make sure that the meaning of the article, of the abstract, is conveyed through the plain language summary and reflected accurately. Again, when the plain language summary is published, it is placed next to the abstract. So anyone who discovers the article, they can also see, they can also find the plain language summary. So in case a more technical language in a different scenario would probably be deterrent, in this case, they can immediately find something more accessible to them, and this will help them understand what the article is about. I want to highlight here that at Cargill, we offer a nice online course which explains how to prepare a language summary. I've put the link at the bottom. I'm going to stay now for a couple of seconds in case you want to jot it down, or again, please feel free to email me, or if you Google it and you are free to attend it, it is free of charge. Now, the other elements are more activities or events around an article, and it is a great way to bring forward the scientific content in an article. So webinars increase the visibility of a specific article, and they are a great way also to create discussion. So they can be either a presentation of a specific article, or they can be a discussion by experts also mentioning specific articles. Now, they can be based on a scientific article, or in cases, for example, of a discussion where experts cover different aspects of a topic, that can lead to a review article, for example, that can capture that all-around review and in the form of a scientific paper. Webinars come in different flavors. They can be live and or recorded. They can be a one-off episode or a series, and they can vary in length from brief podcast to a complete seminar. As an example, I've placed here also the 2022 highlights in Pulse, and if you visit this, you will be able to see that the main idea is that on one side of the page you have the webinar, and on the right-hand side, always hand in hand, you have next to the webinar the link to the original scientific paper. So this is a great way to bring together the discussion and the presentation with the scientific article itself. At Cargill, we also have a dedicated platform which helps to bring to the general public medical updates, and specifically to patients. It is called the waiting room, and this is where we summarize information from original scientific articles to make them available to the general public. The articles that are featured and explained in such a way on waiting room are internally selected by medical writers or editors or the Cargill team. And essentially, it is an explanation. This is new content that aims to explain the scientific article and leads to the creation of a new article in the form of a blog post. The content of waiting room can also include interviews with experts, and it can be in different formats, including text, video, and podcasts, including the full transcript. What is important again is that the blog posts on waiting room are linked to the original scientific article. So while waiting room can cover different aspects, and it can act as a springboard to explain different aspects of a topic, for example, vaccination, it is important that it is always linked to the source of scientific information. So the waiting room represents a great resource for the general public to get reliable medical information. Again, I'll put the link at the bottom, or if you Google waiting room Cargill, you'll see it at the very top, the Google results, and you are welcome to visit it and browse the different episodes. They are organized in different sections, whether because they have an interview, they will be in a different section, or knowledge transfer, which is the explanation of cutting-edge scientific articles in simpler terms. So overall, the idea is that we can have additional content to support a scientific article. These can be elements that can be added to a scientific article, and they can be submitted as an option by the submitting authors. And we can also have activities and online events, and all of these can be in different formats. And essentially, the aim is to increase the visibility of the published articles, communicate them to a wider range of audience, and ultimately to increase the usability of the articles and the impact of the original scientific article. And another thing is that by bringing forward and spotlighting an article, we also help the discovery of other related articles, and this can be either through the references in the article as normal, or in a discussion where the article is placed within a context and discussed through the prism of the analysis and the discussion of a specific medical topic. So thank you for your attention. Now we will be happy to take your questions.
5 questions, and you can answer from 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree to the various questions that we have. So I'll go with the first one. Fantastic. We'll go on to the next question now.
I can see. Yeah.
And we go number 2, from 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. Fantastic. Our third question, 2 left. So obviously, once again, 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. Penultimate question now. Same as before. Okay, thank you everyone. And last question. Well, the results of this one are a lot more mixed than the previous question.
I know. And it keeps changing.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Fantastic. Well, thank you for your input, everyone. We can use these answers to help create even better webinars in the future. And thank you to Nico as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alastair. Shall we wait for a few more seconds just in case we might get a question?
We had on the back, agreeing and disagreeing, but yeah, if anyone has any questions and can't think of anything now, but has something that comes to their mind afterwards, my Nico's email addresses are both in this. If anyone wants to find out more about Karga Research Publishing International, we have the various brands that represent Research Publishing International along the bottom with links to those, whether it's a kind of animation or podcast or anything like that. If you'd like to have that created for you, we offer different services to researchers. Feel free to get in contact, even if it's questions or free advice that you'd like. I'm more than happy to answer.
Okay, I don't think we have any questions, so thanks again, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar.